Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today I got the fabulous Michael Mason with me, and I'm going to ask Michael the same question I ask absolutely everybody. Hey, Michael, why did you become carnivore?
Well, I didn't become carnivore. There wasn't a decision to become, carnivore, and it's obviously the question that people ask the most on all the podcasts. How did you get into it? It's just been an evolving journey. In terms of, I was thinking about it before. 20, 30 years ago, I knew what was good to eat, but I didn't know what was bad to eat. So I always knew that, I've always been eating meat. I always knew eating meat was good because I felt good. As a kid, whenever we used to go out for, a family dinner, which used to be like a once a week or once a month little treat. There used to be in England an old chain, it's no longer here, called Burnley's Inn, and it was just, it was the highlight. And I would have steak and chips. That was all I ever wanted to eat. Whenever we went anywhere, it was like I always wanted steak and chips. Even when we were going to my parents' friends and what have you, we don't have steak. That's all I wanted to eat. So in terms of getting into carnivore, then it wasn't called carnivore. There wasn't a name to it. There was no sort of strictness or in terms of, or you can't eat anything like that. But I knew, a long time ago, what was good, but I didn't know that. Well, actually, Mike, but to a degree, I knew that bad quality food was rubbish. I knew that there was something that, that's the TV dinners and things like that. I knew fresh foods were, good, but I didn't see a difference between, let's say, carbs and fats and I just thought treats were treats. You'd have a Mars bar or a Snickers bar or something like that, and you have chocolate digestive biscuits. And I didn't realize at the time that those were actually, even though the appearance of you can only have them, once a week, which was what we did then. So my journey into carnivore, let's call it, has been an evolving journey as I learned more and more about nutrition and about how food, affected me. And now we're lucky because we do have the internet. We do have the easy access to information. And people say, well, there's crap information, there's fake information. But when I wanted to find out things before the internet, you had to go to a library, you had to read a book. Now you can get, with all these AI apps and everything, you can get summaries of a whole load of books you can get 20, 30 books in a day and understand exactly what, stuff like that is about. So my journey into carnivore has been an evolving learning more, rather than I was ill, I was sick, I was fat or anything like that. And I thought I needed to do some type of detox type of change.
So were you an active athletic sort of person when you were growing up, when you was at school?
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, it's the era that I was brought up. We were kicked out of home to go and play in the park. And that was it. My mother didn't want me in the house. Like, go out and play. So we went out. We did stuff, and the same with school. Doing all the sports that they had. But my biggest thing was I got into martial arts when I was a kid. And that pretty much has been the driver for for everything. The strength training to be better at doing that, the breath work to be better at doing that, and obviously like nutrition. Even though I didn't understand it then, I knew that food was a major factor, or what I was eating was a major factor in terms of how I performed, in terms of, recovery, just general, energy.
So, Michael, I think we're the same age. I mean, I'm 60 this year. I think you beat me slightly. I think you're a little bit older. And when you said about the Snickers bar, I agree. I was pretty sporty. I was a semi-pro soccer player, and I won a singles title in tennis. But I can remember after squash, for instance, because I played all the sports, a Snickers bar wasn't a treat. It was actually the thing I needed to recover, which is terrible. And I know now what was happening with my physiology. So, at what point did food, at what age did food sort of become a bit more prominent in your thinking?
I think really in my early 20s, and in my early 20s, I started to do my own sort of like research. So I followed a whole load of different, let's call them diets, not to lose weight or anything, just because it was just to see how I could perform better, not just in terms of athletically, but just humanly. And so I did a whole load of stuff, and, I got into protein and carb, and learning how not to combine them, all this stuff, juicing, I remember doing all of that. And the thing is with the protein and carb, not combining them, at the time it seemed, well, that makes sense. Because you've only got the book to go by. You can't just, well, I've got this book, go and ask Google or something, what do you think of this? Then you had to read it and okay, well, but it made sense to me. And from that, I then, I started to become vegetarian, because I wanted to try it, not because of any sort of like moral, reasons, at all. And, in my early 20s, you can pretty much do anything, and get away with it. And then with the protein and carb combining, what I discovered was that if I went vegan, and I was vegetarian for about just under 3 years, I sort of discovered if I do like not combine carbs and protein and became a vegan, that made it all that. And I was vegan for this was in the late 80s. So again, no Google, no internet, just getting books. But one thing sort of like, and I did it sort of quite well. I stopped after 6 months because it was a smell of bacon sandwiches. And I thought, well, I've done that. I want to go back to sort of, but one thing, even then, I remember going into there's a well-known vegetarian shop in the town that I live that's been there for years and years and years. And I remember like looking at even like then, the late 80s, the ultra processed sausage mix and things like that. And I was like looking at the pack and looking at the ingredients, thinking like, how many? And I didn't understand it, but I thought, well, that's not, they're trying to add the flavor for it so it can taste like a traditional sausage, but it's just full of numbers and just a whole load of ingredients. And the other thing that I noticed then, I was training, I was extremely fit, even though I'd been vegan for 6 months and vegetarian but I did it properly, like that. And I remember going into these shops and thinking like, I felt different. I looked different. And that was that, even then I knew that I looked different. I knew that these people that they didn't look well, or they looked weak. And and that's the only way that I can say it. They looked weak and I felt strong. I look strong. So I think I've gone on a bit of a digression with that, like I said I would. But yeah. So it was in my early 20s that I started playing around with different, and I've done pretty much every type of diet sort of thing that there is, just to just to see what it was like. Some weird and wonderful ones as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I didn't know that bit about your history, that you'd been vegan and vegetarian. So just for the people out there that have heard you say, I learned not to mix carbs and protein, it seems so obvious. For some people, they might not have heard that. So how would you explain it to someone that was a little bit confused?
Well, I don't mean it seemed like, obviously it seemed to make sense then. Now it doesn't. I don't see any sort of like it was just then. That makes sense. So it just meant that you weren't eating protein with your carbs, which meant that apparently it would process it differently in the body, so you'd have more energy. It wasn't trying to fight each other with, and at the time that seems, it makes sense. It made sense that if I started my day with loads of fruit juice, loads of juicing, I used to go and get loads of oranges from the fruit market, juicing it. To me, that made sense. Now it's like, well, hold on a minute. That doesn't, it's just crazy. But then it made sense because, you're detoxing yourself and blah, blah, blah. You're going to feel good. And, I did feel good. I didn't feel bad. So I was just going with that. I mean, the thought of doing that now, just sort of like, frightens me. But again, early 20s, extremely sort of fit and strong. You can get away with it if that's a terminology, getting away with it.
Yeah, and that's how I felt. I was getting away with. See, I should have been the poster boy for the food guidelines. I don't drink, don't smoke. I had no red meat, no fat. It was all porridge oats, skim milk, and freshly squeezed orange juice, and it did me no favors whatsoever. But I felt I was out. Right now, I realise I was out training a bad diet, but it came back to bite me in my 40s. Anyway, right, it's about you. So that's the 20s. It's a bit of vegetarianism, a little bit of veganism, the smell of bacon sandwiches luring you back to the dark side of meat, which is good. Were you in the health industry at this point?
Well, yes. I mean, sort of yes and no, semi. I was training. I was teaching martial arts, and various things, around that. That's how I got into bodyguarding, et cetera, et cetera. And so, and then it was just again a progression, from that.
So you was a bodyguard. Was you a bodyguard for anyone famous, or are you not allowed to tell us?
I've looked after some. I have looked after some very important people. And I suppose my main claim to fame was like when I was living in Switzerland. I was a full-time ski coach. So as well as being a ski coach, I was also a bodyguard. So I used to look after people when they came on their holidays, because they would have their own security, but their own security couldn't ski. So they would hire me. And even the ones who came with their security who could ski, they would call me anyway, and I would take them around. So because they didn't know the area. So I was just like some local, and I've had some, I've been with some very, very interesting people.
Yeah, I thought you'd be a little bit guarded, and I don't blame you. I don't know you very well, but I think what's really strange is people that watch my channel will know that I was a ski rep as well in my 20s in Bardonecchia, but I wasn't bodyguarding. I was teaching the snow plough to children at college. But anyway, completely different. But I did manage to have a couple of days that were a bit more exciting. But anyway, so I've encountered you because of the Mason Survival. It's behind you. For people on the audio podcast, it's quite a cool logo. When did you get into this part of your life where you are now?
Well, pretty much the that's been sort of, I suppose, like the building block, of where of where I am now. Or I say now, but over the last however long, it started to sort of like crystallize into a more of a brand. But then I was using Mason Survival, you know, more like 15 years ago. So it's more obviously more sort of like crystallized now, due to, I think, people just because of like the training that I'm doing and what have you. But it's all of the different elements that I do, and my experience in a whole range of things that have crystallized it into, let's call it, the Mason Survival protocol.
And what is that? What are the tenets of that?
Well, very simple, very, very simply, it's good nutrition through a high protein, animal based diet, breath work in all its forms. So whether that is more the spiritual meditation type of form, or just plain and simple functional breath work, and strength training, and again with that in all its different guises for everyone. And then that again is like the three pillars, but that's the building blocks. And with that builds it into that, I suppose what I'm trying to sort of get across to people, it's not about those specific things individually, it's all those things together that creates a mindset, so you can create that consistency to do all of these things every day. And that's when the magic happens. I think we said it the other night. Everyone can do a carnivore diet for 3 days, but can you do it for 3 months? Can you do it for 3 years? Everyone after New Year can do, or I'm going to go for a walk every day, or I'm not going to drink for, let's call it, dry January, or I'm not going to do. Anyone can do it for a day, but can you do it for 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years? And so I build in my sort of experience of, I don't drink. I mean, I haven't drunk since I was 22, and any mood altering sort of chemical, either. So I have experience of knowing what it's like to go through that day 1, day 2, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So now it's just like a normal, existence. So all of, so the Mason Survival Protocol is, in essence, the experience of me based on those, the 3 principles: eating well, training well, and breathing well.
Yeah, I want to come back onto the breathing, but the one thing jumped out that is such a hot issue at the moment in the carnivore community, especially when you use the phrase animal-based. Does that mean that you include fruit and honey in your way of eating?
I don't. Okay, so I don't not include it. And what I, what I mean, what I mean by that is that I'm not saying you've got to have fruit, you've got to have honey, you've got to have this. What I'm saying is that every now and then, especially like during the summer, I'll have some fruit. If I go out and there's someone offers me some honey or something like that, I'll have it. And I give you an example. My friends have a place in the Greek islands. It's the most magical. It's one of the most magical islands. It's beautiful there. So I go there sometimes in the summer, and they get the most fantastic Greek yogurt, of course, because it's in, but it's just amazing. They also have this amazing honey, and it's like, well, I have some honey, and over a year, the amount of honey that I'm having, the amount of fruit that I'm having, the amount of, let's say, if I do have a salad or something like that, is probably less than 1%. It really is, but I don't preclude anything. If I go out to a restaurant, and they have something that's really, I'll give you an example. So my friend, one of my best pals, he's a 2-star Michelin chef. And we go on little boys' trips, and I go up to his restaurant. I haven't been this year. Let's say once a year. And they feed me. Well, I'm eating it. I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to have that because that's going to block. I take it on the chin. I'm not going to do it every day. It's not going to make me go out straight after and raid the corner shop for all the Mars bars they've got. I just do that. It's like, that to me is just amazing treat to have. And if I said, well, I'm not going to have that, I can't have that, I wouldn't get invited. There'd be nothing to eat.
Yeah, I get that because I coach that way. I lived and worked in France and in Italy, and I always use the Italian example that if someone says to me, is it all right to eat pasta? And I say, well, if you're in Italy and someone says, my auntie makes it from scratch and it's the most amazing pasta you'll ever taste in Tuscany, you'd be an idiot not to try it because that's an authentic sort of Italian experience. And I think that's it. It's just being sensible with those things. The breathing, I suppose Wim Hof might be the person that's brought that to more people's attention than anyone else. But how long have you been interested in breathing technique? And could you give us just a sort of taste of why that is important?
Well, I learned Tai Chi and Qigong more than 30 years ago as part of my martial art training. And one that always intrigues me because it seemed like very sort of like mystical. And again, then there wasn't the amount of information that you can get now. And as a kid, growing up with the likes of Bruce Lee and David Carradine, the series Kung Fu, you see him in a monastery and they're doing the fighting and stuff like that, but they're also doing they're also trying to be sort of serene in the midst of the storm. And so I was always intrigued, with that. So that really sort of like lit my fire. And I knew then that in martial arts isn't just about, you have to have, and I know it sounds like a cliche, but you have to have the yin and yang. You have to have the hard and the soft. You have to have the softness with that hardness. And so understanding and learning more about breath work and how it affects everything, how it affects sleep, how it affects anxiety, how it affects your performance, and also learning how generally everyone gives the wrong advice with breathing when they say, deep breaths, and when people say, well, calm down. But how do you calm down? It's like, someone's having a panic attack and everything, and they're just saying, calm down. Look, well, if I could calm down, then I wouldn't be having, So all of those things, drove me to sort of like learn more and more about how we control our body, how we can control our mindset through breath work. And it goes back to all the stuff that I was learning over 30 years ago.
It's amazing, really. And I mean, it has been around a long time because I remember when I was doing my specialist practitioner qualifications and we were talking about blood pressure, how changing someone's breathing can bring their blood pressure down very quickly, very, very quickly. But like you say, not breathe in, breathe out, it's breathing properly, which again brings me into another sort of fad at the moment. Have you got any views on mouth taping?
Yes.
Would you like to share them?
Yeah. So I've always had, one of the issues that I've had is that I've always had dysfunctional sleep for a long, long time. Always waking up lots of nightmares, lots of let's call it strange, experiences. And sometimes it's been pretty sort of like pretty hairy. When I used to go to Japan to train, no one wanted to share a room with me because they just knew, they would just hear me having these fights and everything in the rooms next door, knocking things over. Anyway, so, and I've like looked into it and tried to like work out, what it was, and also trying to find, that part in me that wants a mystical solution to it. I love science. I love to know the knowledge, the truth about stuff, but I also like, I grew up with woo-woo, so I love the woo, and I do take the piss with it sometimes, but I do like a bit of woo-woo. Anyway, so to cut a long story short, my sleeping has always been, dysfunctional. So I think it's about just under 5 years ago. I saw on YouTube someone talking about putting tape over their mouth, keeping the mouth shut. They talks about mouth breathing, nasal breathing. I thought, okay, I'm going to give that a go. In that 5 years, just under 5 years, I pretty much have taped my mouth up every single day to sleep. The dreams and the madness that I used to have went pretty much immediately. I feel, I have much more clarity. I have better, I wake up. I've never been much of a a morning person anyway, but I wake up not like I feel like I've been 12 rounds with someone, and it's as simple as that. And then so as I started to understand it, because I was a mouth breather, when I go to sleep, you can go to sleep, everything relaxes. Because the mouth is open, the jaw goes back. The jaw goes back and starts to restrict your breathing. So you're not breathing as well. So you're building up carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, that build-up of carbon dioxide, sets off panic. That's it. That's what it does. I didn't know that at the time, and because I've always looked at non-medicinal interventions, because I didn't want to take any type of, you go to a doctor and say, well, I'm not sleeping very well, or take these. So I knew a long time ago I'm not going to go down that road. And so by taping the mouth, forcing myself to breathe through the nose, and the amazing thing is that when people say to me, yeah, but what if your nose is blocked? The amazing thing is that you do it, the nose unblocks itself. That's what the nose is for. It's for breathing. You build up like the nitric oxide in the parasinus. It opens up the blood vessels. It opens up. There's a vasodilator, as you know, and you just feel better. So that's been my experience, and I think 5 years is a good amount of time to have some anecdotal, evidence that that this works.
Yes, and I've had plenty of feedback like that. I'm relatively new to mouth taping. I think it is a game changer for many people. I've definitely heard that from clients. My wife is absolutely convinced it's really helped, and I absolutely agree as well. I like the science of it. I think it's very interesting. And what you said earlier, it all makes sense. To me, it makes total sense. But what is good is it's backed up by real world examples. And the only thing I have problems with is occasionally if I wake up maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, because I am a morning person, and I feel like I should have a couple more hours in bed rather than get up and do stuff. I will take the tape off if I've woken up. Anyway, that was brilliant. Thank you, Michael, for that. I want to move on to a couple of things that really interested me. I've only met you once before, and I think it's amazing. And by the way, we've been to many of the same places, because I've been to Greece and I've that yogurt and honey experience, not with the same people, and also in Japan. I've been lucky to go there. So I met you the other day. I was very impressed, and you mentioned a couple of things in the Carnivore Team GB meeting, where you were talking about you offer retreats, and I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about the retreats.
So I run a retreat in the Scottish Highlands. It's in a former hunting lodge on a massive deer park. So there's over 4,000 acres. Pretty much completely remote, and basically I just offer what I do. So get up in the morning, and the place is just idyllic. I mean, it's just beautiful. Big old Victorian lodge. The last Tsar of Russia stayed there hunting. He should have stayed there, I think. But anyway, and so we do breath work, we do some training, we stick to a regime of eating twice a day. So we have a fasted morning, we eat a shed load for lunch, we go on for walks and hikes, chill, eat again, walk, chill, chat, and I do everything. So I do all the cooking, I do all the breath work, do all the training, and I source everything from local farms. Everything is just what I consider like the best beef that you can get, the best chicken. I think we talked about the other day, getting good chicken. I get fabulous, completely free range chicken that I take from a friend of mine. He rears it. The ones I've got coming in a couple of weeks, they're going to be at least 6 months old. So they're actually huge chickens. They've only been eating grass and worms and dung beetles, and they live out in the open. Pork that I get from my friend who breeds Manglitzer pigs in Sussex. It's just fantastic, and do all the cooking, and it's just, I know it's like what I'm doing and what I'm selling, but it's just a fabulous week away.
Yeah, and it does look idyllic. And for those that are listening on the audio, I will try and sort of put a link into a couple of images, and obviously I'll overlay some images onto this interview so people on YouTube and Rumble can see what Mike was talking about. The final thing, well, actually two things. One is you also mentioned something about beef jerky.
Yes, so I've set up with a friend of mine a beef jerky business, which will be launching. We're a bit behind, but it should be the latest by mid February, and we launching a beef jerky business, just beef, just salt, the best beef that we can get, and I've been eating an awful lot, doing all the testing and getting it all tasting as good as I can get it. So, and that's going to go live mid Feb.
Excellent. And when you do, just send me a link and I'll add it to the description so people can check that out. So my final question is, and we're recording this in January of 2024. So future people, hi. This is what it was like in 2024. And of course, January is the time when people are thinking new you, new year, new you, and all this sort of stuff. But you can change your life any month, any day. What would you say to somebody that's sitting on the fence about doing, say, your protocol, or even just thinking about what they're eating and thinking about the breathing, and they're just umming and ahhing and saying, well, is it all worth it?
Well, I think it's a simple question. Are you happy with where you are? Yes, No. If yes, then okay, carry on. If you keep getting what you're getting, then keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it's simple. There's magic. But if you do want to change, if you do think, actually, I want to, then dive in, not next week, not 2 weeks time, now, because now is the only time that we have control of. And, so that's what I say to people. It's like, are you happy with what you're doing? Yes or no? No, yeah, no, well, yes or no. And what I try to do, I try to sort of simplify, and I don't mean that in what I do. I just try to simplify and just break it, just a simple sort of equation. I hate anything that's complicated. I hate anything that, people will say, oh, you've got to do this exercise, that, you've got to do it a certain way, you've got to do this, you've got to have this, and it's like, just move. Just pick up a barbell. If you're going to go to the gym, do something, and get some coaching on how to do it. But you don't need to do. There's no magic. It's all about doing it every day over a period of time. And that's where the magic is. Consistency is the magic, and it's not, and I keep saying it to people, but the carnivore diet isn't the magic. The magic is in doing the carnivore diet over a period of time. That's it. You're not going to get automatically, oh, that's it, I've done it one day, feel fantastic, that's it for the rest of my life. I can go back and eating the pies and the Snickers bars and the Coke and the full fat Cokes and what have you. So
yes, it's simple, and you can just do it and go for it, and it will never happen unless you actually do it. So you're right. If you're saying you want to make a change, I really agree with that, because people before Christmas were saying to me, I'll do it in the new year. And I'm saying, why are you waiting? Let's do it. Let's go run on your enthusiasm. Let's really go for it. And everybody that did go for it are so relieved that they did. So relieved, because it made Christmas actually easier. So anyway, Michael, thank you so much. All your links will be in the description. You haven't got to spell it all out. It will be clickable in the description, whether it's the audio podcast or the YouTube. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me. And if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.